and feeling like I had this expectation that everything outside of me would make me feel fulfilled, and it never, ever made me feel fulfilled. And so it was this common theme that actually kept showing up in my life, but it was showing up physically in different ways. And it was almost like my system was screaming at me, like, listen, like, stop living like this, stop feeling this way. And it was really only when I started diving deep and recognizing my thoughts and my emotions were really the cause of what was going on physically that things started to change.
Hey, I'm Megs, and welcome to the Free to Be You podcast. I am an identity and alignment coach who is passionate about helping you move into the second chapter of your life as the freest, most self-expressed version of who you really are. If there's one thing I know for sure, it's that when you decide to go on this journey and rediscover you, you are going to need people around you who are going to encourage you to keep moving forward and keep choosing yourself. I have created a free community of women who are doing just that. It's called the Freed to Rediscover You group. It's over on Facebook. The link is in the show notes below this episode. I would love to see you there. I would love to support you on your journey to moving through self-abandonment and into full self-expression. This is a conversation with Dr. Kelly Kessler, a licensed physical therapist, transformation coach, and host of the podcast Rewiring Health. Kelly helps high-performing, perfectionist women stop feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, and in pain. In this conversation, she shares how she guides her clients in creating mental, emotional, and physical harmony through nervous system regulation and subconscious reprogramming. She shares her own journey with us, and I even learn a few things about getting in touch with who we really are by listening to Kelly's story. Let's dive into what I know is going to be an inspiring conversation for you. Kelly, welcome to the Free to Be You podcast. It's so good to have you today. I know that, again, like a lot of my amazing guests, not always in the same time zone. So good of you to jump up early and jump on this call so that we can jam out on something that is very, very personal to both of us. But before we do that, I would really love it if you could tell everybody who you are and what you do, and share with us a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for having me on. I have been looking forward to this conversation. And so I help high achieving perfectionist women, people pleasing perfectionist women, stop feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, and in pain, and really continue to be able to achieve success without compromising their health. So many of us get stuck in that warp of thinking that it's mutually exclusive. We either have to achieve success and push forward or take care of ourselves. And I show women how we can do both and not compromise ourselves in the process.
I love that. Now, I also know that you have another couple of hats as well. That's one of them. So you are a mum as well.
Yes, I'm a mom of two boys. I have a 4-year-old and a almost 11-month-old. So 2 little boys. And that's another thing, is just showing you that you have to lead by example. They learn more subconsciously and by seeing you do the right things than by saying it. So that's really inspired my journey. I also have a podcast too, Rewiring Health, and I'm a physical therapist by trade. So a lot of different hats, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. I love it. And I love that you're doing what you're passionate about when you've got young children, because a lot of my audience, a lot of people listening are mums with, that are a little bit, maybe perhaps have older children and maybe just looking to sort of step into something new. And, that next chapter is all about them. So I love that you are doing what you love amongst bringing up your children, because we can do that, but it's not always easy, and it's easy to burn out for sure. So I love that. One of the things that I think would be really great for us to jam on, and for people who've listened to other episodes on my podcast would have heard me talk about the fact that I was somebody who really, really suffered with people pleasing and being a perfectionist for a very long time. I'm older than you, so longer, a long time. And that was something that, I don't think you ever really overcome it, because if you are that way inclined, it is something that just comes with who you are, being who you are. And it's not all bad. Like, it's nice to look after the people that we love. And it's great to be somebody who cares for others, but we can go too far with that, and it can start to, we can start to self-abandon, but we can also start to affect our health. And I would love for us to get into that on this show, to really help women understand that, yes, we want to get past it, but there's a lot of other reasons other than just getting out of our own way that make it important to move through. So let's dig into like how. I would love it if you would like to just share a little bit with me about what your journey with people pleasing, like, what has that looked like for you? Like, how has that affected you? And is what you do part of the reason, that it's that you're passionate about it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So for me, it was very much that people pleasing and the perfectionist mindset that was those limiting beliefs that kept me stuck in a very vicious cycle. And so looking back, I recognize this has started, very much in like childhood and then progressed even to like teens. And I didn't realize at the time, but those limiting beliefs were showing themselves up in many ways in my life. And it's only now that I've gained clarity in that. And so back when I was, late teens, early 20s, I was so much that perfectionist, take care of everybody else and just go, 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 that I showed up as an eating disorder. And so I was that athlete that would drive hard and be unforgiving of myself and always just try to step up to the plate and make sure that I'm doing everything that I thought people wanted me to do. And so it became this like hyperdrive mentality, and it just kind of snowballed from where I was a field hockey athlete to being where I was just working out 3 to 4 times a day, running at 3 a.m., exercising compulsively. And then it just progressed more to, vomiting when I couldn't make up for the calories, exercise alone, and got way out of hand. And eventually I recovered from that, but the limiting beliefs stuck with me. And so now it started showing up as other things. So then in my mid-20s, I experienced chronic back pain and could not achieve long-term relief. I would go to clinicians, achieve short-term relief, but it would come right back. And I started noticing it was ebbing and flowing with stress levels. And the more I was coming down on myself, critiquing myself, giving of myself to everyone and not really leaving anything for myself, my back pain would increase. And so that lingered for years. And then again, same limiting beliefs, same mentality, subconscious mind, then started manifesting as panic attacks. So I experienced my first panic attack on my first day of my job as a physical therapist, right after I had gotten out of school. And it was, again, just trying to like meet the demands of everybody. So I was in this clinic where no one really spoke the language, my language. And my boss was like, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. And I'm trying to like be the best for everybody, making sure everyone was taken care of. And like, I had no support. And, car broke down on the side of the road on my way home at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm on the side of the highway and like tractor trailers are zooming by me. And I'm like, I like couldn't breathe anymore. I was just like, I couldn't think. I had called my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and just like, I was freaking out. And that was the first panic attack, but it was the first of many. And I just recognized now that there was a common theme. And that common theme was feeling like I'm never good enough, feeling like I had to always show up for everybody in my life and put everyone and everything before me, and that those were always the priority. And feeling like I was critiquing myself with everything. Even if I was doing a good job from the outside, it was never enough for me. And I felt like it just never hit. And feeling like I had this expectation that everything outside of me would make me feel fulfilled, and it never, ever made me feel fulfilled. And so it was this common theme that actually kept showing up in my life, but it was showing up physically in different ways. And it was almost like my system was screaming at me, like, listen, like, stop living like this, stop feeling this way. And it was really only when I started diving deep and recognizing my thoughts and my emotions were really the cause of what was going on physically that things started to change.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much I want to unpack there. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to resonate with people listening. For me in particular, like just the toll that it takes on you internally is
Mm-hmm.
we can't underestimate that. Like, we cannot
Yeah.
fathom it, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
so debilitating at times. So there's two things that I really want to touch on that you just said there. One of them is, what were the limiting, when you say the limiting beliefs, what can you tell us sort of a little bit more specifically, like what
Yeah.
was that voice saying? Like what was it that you were believing about yourself that was limiting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one thing was that I could never disappoint anybody, that, I had to make sure everyone was taken care of, avoid conflict at all costs, make sure that you are showing up as your best self for others, not for myself, but for others. Make sure that everyone else is taken care of, make sure everything that they've set into your lap, as far as tasks and everything, were taken care of. So all those things that I truly believed, like I didn't even know I was living in that, because that was my truth at that time. And other things were that things had to be perfect. Like I could have had 95% of things great. I would focus on that 5% that didn't go well. And that was time and time again. And it would eat at me. I would lay awake at night thinking of that 5% that didn't go right. And until I started questioning, well, why does it have to be 100% every time? Why, why do I have to look a certain way? Why do I feel like that is attached to my happiness? Why do I feel like I have to have a certain job or degree to be happy? It's all those things that we think that are going to bring us happiness, and all those things that we think, all those rules we think we have to live by, that are ingrained in us, and we don't even realize that they're not true. Why is it okay for everyone to be taken care of before ourselves? And so until I started even questioning that, I thought that was how it had to be. Like if everyone was good, then I'm good. But that was not true.
True, not true. And the
Mm-hmm.
other thing too, you talked a little bit about how, obviously having the panic attacks and the effect on your health. Like we really do not see that coming. And I've always said this, it's like, if you don't pay attention, your body is going to make you pay attention. If you don't
Exactly.
stop, your body is going to make you stop. I've definitely
Mm-hmm.
had that experience myself
Yeah.
throughout the years. So yeah, and I think that's a really important like sort of takeaway for us as women, is to think, we're natural nurturers. It comes
Mm-hmm.
naturally to us to
Yeah.
want to take care of other people. So my next question for you is like, how has that been for you, like becoming a mum? Did you
Mm-hmm.
find that those feelings kind of came back and that they were showing up differently when you had these little humans that you still have to look after?
Yeah. So I definitely found this coming back up, and really it kind of hit its the biggest point when my son was about 9 months old, my first son, and we were building our house, and we were the general contractors. I had just had my son, and it was just absolutely like pure chaos. And again, I was like taking care of everything before myself, and that was really when I just like hit, I feel like, my rock bottom. I'm like, I'm not even enjoying being present with my son. Like I was physically there, but mentally I was not there. And I'm watching him just grow and time pass, and I'm like, and people are like, oh, it must be really hard, just being a new mom. And I'm like, honestly, that's the easiest part, because I'm focused on the house, like, so again, I was focused on tasks, and making sure everything was taken care of. I was just existing. I was on autopilot. And so I had to really, that was really when I like was like, here's my wake up call. Like I can't watch my son's life pass by and not feel like I'm present with him and enjoying these moments and savoring these moments. So it really, that was when I started taking care of myself. But I've had to have constant reminders that me taking care of myself is the best gift I can give to my son. And so if it means that I make things non-negotiable, that this is my time, he's going to see that, and he will do that in his life. And what a gift to him, because I didn't do that for much of my life. I didn't make me a non-negotiable. So if I can show him that, like, this is how you need to live your life so that you can be in a better place, like that has been the mindset shift, that this is a gift to him when I take care of myself. And then I have more patience. I can be present with him. I can laugh and joke with him because I'm not so frazzled. Like it really starts with you. It starts with getting your core in harmony. And then now the rest of your life goes into harmony.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter how old your children get, they're always
Mm-hmm.
watching. And in particular, as they get like that, they say that we make the adult before they're 6, no pressure. But you know, and it's, we've got a big job. But most of the time, before they're 6, before they're 10, we're just kind of figuring it out. And then maybe when they get a little bit older, we kind of start to, you know, have a little bit more of an idea. But, it's too late. We already made the adult. Yeah. I remember the first time I heard that, and I thought to myself, it just gave me so much anxiety to think that I was going to have that much impact on my own children. And I really didn't have an awareness at that point that this is what was happening. As in, like, I didn't have the awareness that you have. So I love that you get to have that now for your kid more, because I can definitely tell you that when my children were growing up, that was heightened so much, because all I ever wanted to be was an amazing mom. And anything on top of that was going to be a bonus for me. I don't know, not every woman is like that when they're growing up as a girl, but for me, like, that was my life purpose. I was here to be an amazing mom, not just a mom, but an amazing mom. And living into that story and living into that vision, and then adding those feelings of not being good enough was just, I would love to have had the awareness when my kids were small. So I'm excited for you for that. Moving forward, though, obviously, you know, we need to learn how to put boundaries in place and how to overcome those things. So what is some things that you have done to do that, like to actually get this under control for yourself, so that, you know, you're now helping other people move through it? So I know that there must be some amazing wisdom that you have around sort of setting boundaries and putting some strategies in place.
Yeah. So boundaries was always that, like, it used to make me feel cringy. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to cut people out of my life? You know, like, that's what it felt like. And so boundaries was foreign to me for years. Like, literally I would hear that, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Like, that doesn't even make sense. It feels like not natural. And so, I mean, for years I was just kind of avoided that and I didn't even know how to apply it to my life. And really, when that changed was I ended up hiring a coach and invested a lot of money into that. And so I started to realize that, like, no, if I'm putting this much money into, I have to do everything in the program. And so it really transitioned everything where I'm like, no, I need to be a non-negotiable. Like, I'm investing a lot of time and energy into this, and I need to make sure that I'm getting what I need out of this. And that really switched my mentality to where, like, I was the priority because of that investment. And so it was really the first time I invested in myself. Like, I had invested in school, I had invested in other things in my life, but it was the first time I invested in elevating myself. And that really was a game changer. And so as I started incorporating daily routines and being consistent with it, I really respected the energy that I gained from it. I really respected who I was becoming. And I really had less tolerance for other things in my life that would take away from that. And so one quote that really, like, resonated with me and was this, is that you get more of what you tolerate. And that was me. I mean, I tolerated so many things in my life and came up with excuses for why I was tolerating it, why I was putting up with it, why I just had to get through this and then it'll be better. It was never going to be better until I started not tolerating it, until I started putting those boundaries up and started realizing that, you know, I took a step back and I'm like, if you are going to contribute to my energy, I'll keep you. If you're going to drain my energy, I'm not keeping you. And I really looked at myself almost like a bank account. You know, if someone was withdrawing from your bank account over and over and over again, you would cut them off real fast. And yet we allow our energy to just be dispersed all around. So if we can start looking at ourselves like a bank account and start looking at other people in our lives as either depositing or withdrawing, it really helps us take the emotions out of it and really see it more from a very concrete point of view that, you know, I'm worth more. And the more I invest in myself, the less I'm willing to allow people to take away from that.
Oh, that's so powerful. Yeah. And so how does that, like, sort of link back into, I mean, I know you talk a lot about, like, regulating your nervous system and, you know, keeping yourself well and learning how to listen to your body. So what is that, what sort of advice you could give around that? And what sort of things do you talk about and regulate in regards to regulating your nervous system? I don't know why that was so hard to get out, but hopefully that makes sense.
I know what you're doing. I know you're going. So the big thing I want to talk about, like why people pleasing and having those limiting beliefs actually does cause nervous system regulation. So our mind and our body are completely interconnected. So whatever we think will show up in our body. So it all starts with a thought, and then we attach emotion to a thought. And then that emotion gets embodied into every one of our cells. And then it actually can change the way in which our cells operate, but it also changes the way in which our nervous system operates. And so it's almost like if you have a body image limiting belief, like, I don't like the way I look. So that's your thought. Then the emotion is like, oh, I'm shameful. Like, I can't wear that bathing suit because I don't like the way I look. So now you attach the emotion, and now you go to a beach, and now you start to feel like maybe your heart is pounding, your breathing is shallow, you feel anxious, you like are uncomfortable, you're jittery. Now it's become physical. And so that's just one instance. But when you repeat that cycle in many aspects of your life, now your body is embodying what you have experienced mentally and emotionally. And so now, again, our nervous system takes that as either we need to protect you or you're safe. And when you have limiting beliefs that make you feel like you are threatened or you're not safe, it increases the sympathetic branch, which is your stress branch. So there's two branches: it's sympathetic, parasympathetic, just for ease of explaining it. But your sympathetic branch is your fight, flight, and freeze. This is your branch where, if you, in primitive times, that if we saw a lion in the wilderness, we would run from it, fight it, or just play dead. And we have the same primitive response, but now our stress is coming from within our heads. It's that you're not enough. You need to take care of everyone else. You are, that wasn't good enough. Criticizing yourself. The stress is within ourselves. So now we get stuck in the stress cycle. So we're constantly on guard. Our system is in this hypervigilant system. It's anxious. It feels all that within the body. And so what happens as far as our health is that our heart rate increases, our breathing rate increases and becomes more shallow. Our muscles become tense. Our fascia, which is our connective tissue, actually changes its properties. So your body starts to go into the almost like defensive positioning. So your shoulders elevate, your hips become very tight. You get very tight in your back, almost like you were going to fight, but it stays in that position for maybe weeks, months, years, decades. And so we are all tense. So our body feels it. We may get headaches. We may get our jaw clenching. So it's all those responses that we would get as if we were going to fight a lion. But the lion doesn't go away like it used to. Now the lion is in front of you. It's on your cell phone. It's on your screen. It's on the TV and the news. It's in the conversations. It doesn't go away. So we get stuck in this response. And unless we are intentional about bringing ourselves out of that response, we stay stuck. And so now, things that we may have been tolerant of, like maybe our child's like, mommy, 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 mommy. You're like, what? Because you're so heightened. You have no buffer zone. You are so heightened. Any little thing can set you off. And then you have that guilt, like, oh, I should have been patient. And it drops you down where you have that guilt and shame. And then your emotions are all over the place. So we have to bring ourselves in a place where we're harmonious. We can buffer stresses. We can have a stressful event, deal with it, and come back to calm and regulated. And that's really where that connection is.
Yeah. Whew. Do I resonate with that? My goodness. And, I think like I said before, we underestimate how these thoughts about ourselves that seem so innocent, but they seem so, they're just thoughts. It's fine. We don't really have a conscious understanding of how that is affecting us physically. And like stress is no joke. Like stress can cause so many issues in our body. But to think that our actual cellular structure changes and we get stuck in that for a long time, it's quite frightening, really, isn't it? And when we go to start working through this stuff, and obviously there's lots of places where we could start. Where do you start with people? Do you start with the thoughts, or do you start with the body, or is it simultaneous? Like what's the process?
Yeah. So I start with a lot of the body work. So because when we start with the thoughts and we're in such a dysregulated state and we're in a stress state, when we try to start with the mind itself, we are usually not receptive to it, because if you are in that stress state, again, your system is protecting you. The last thing, so if there's a lion in front of you, the last thing you want to do is like, okay, let me listen to this, let me do this. Your system is like, no, don't listen to anything. That's where that brain fog comes in. That's where like your mind's not working right because you're so stressed out. So we have to get the system into a place where it's receptive to change. And that usually does start with the body. And so the first place I start with everyone is breath work. Breath is everything. So allowing and teaching the body to be calm. So when we start with breath is one of those voluntary things that we have, but it's also involuntary, that we just breathe and we don't have to think about it. So it's a beautiful gateway to penetrate deeper into the system. So again, if there was that line there and your breathing is going to be shallow and quick, when we teach the body to start breathing in a slow, conscious way, that's opposite of what we would normally do in a protective stress response. So your body starts to say, oh, I guess our safety is not compromised at this time. Okay. All right. I can start to let my guard down. So it's a really good gateway. And then now we can move into other places as far as incorporating vagus nerve techniques, movement. There's a lot of different ways we can start integrating into the system, and then doing the subconscious belief work in conjunction with that. And that's why it's so important to have the mind and the body on, because if we only do the body, we're still going to be getting ourselves into that same place. If we only do the mind, we're not even receptive to change. So we have to do both. And that really is the key to making any long-lasting change.
That is why you're here. Because as you know, like, I'm all about the mindset. So I'm all about freeing people up from the things that have held them back. But also that's one area. But the other big thing in order to feel free is to rediscover that sense of self. So, rediscovering your body in that new way as well, that adds a whole nother layer to what I've already been talking about on previous shows and obviously what I talk about with my clients. So and I do believe in that breath work as well. I do find that if I get a client that, we're starting a session and some of them can be quite intense, we do box breathing. So it's like, breathing and then holding it at the top and then breathing out and then holding it at the bottom, and like just really getting like dropping into the room is kind of what I call it. Because like dropping into your body, like letting go of the things that are happening outside of what we're doing and being in the space. And I got to tell you, like holding space for people so that they can hear themselves, so that they can allow the things that we're going to uncover to land in a way that they can, they can take them on and reframe, when we can reframe them. It is really, really powerful. So I totally hear you with the breath work thing. Not everyone is comfortable with it though, which is interesting. So some people have some walls up around that whole, breath work, meditation, that kind of thing. But there's a lot to be said for getting enough like oxygen into our body and into our brain so that it is very, very relaxing getting back in touch with that breath.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's science to it. So, I know sometimes those things get like that woo-woo, labeling, but there really is a science and physiological background to all that. So it works, and I love that you incorporate the box breathing into your sessions, because it really does work.
Yeah. Because we need to let go. We need to be in the right frame of mind to take on these new ways of seeing things. And if we're defensive or anxious, or this, the day that you've had, if it's a nighttime, is in the way, then it's just, we're wasting our time. So it's really important. And I love that, we can have this conversation and we can really bring that awareness to us as women, that, our body has a lot of hidden wisdom that we're not even aware of. And it's fantastic what you're doing, Kelly. I love it.
So thank you.
So coming back around to sort of that like perfectionism and that people pleasing tendencies and things like that. So Why do you think so many of us suffer with that? I mean, we've kind of touched on it a little bit already, but just sort of circling back around into that conversation, like, why do you think that we tend to fall more into this thinking than perhaps say, it tends to be more of a female thing? So why do you think that we can't have that, naturally have that self-compassion, and we generally become over functioning when we think like this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And yeah, it's interesting because I think it stems from how you grew up. It also stems from like societal values. And I feel like it's almost become normalized that like, and praised that, she's such a perfectionist. Like she makes sure everything is good. Oh, she's so giving, always looking out for other people before herself. It's praised, and we internalize that, like, oh, that's a good value. That's something I should do. And then it's also praised like more is better, more is better. And so we internalize that, like, oh, if I keep putting more people in front of myself, that's really good. That's good for me, or if I keep doing things to where they're absolutely perfect, like that must be good for me because society praises it. Maybe you got praised for that when you're a child, like, oh, you got straight A's. Oh, that was great. Or maybe you didn't get straight A's and got a B, and you're like, well, oh, what happened in this class? Why'd you get a B in this class? There's a negative connotation to when things aren't perfect. So we internalize this, like, okay, I guess everything has to be perfect, and then everything will be okay if it's perfect. And then it's also that, oh, you shared with your friends, like, of course that's good, as a kid. But it's like, oh, you looked out for whatever Sally that day. That's all good things. But unless we're also talking about the other thing, like, you also have to look out for yourself. Unless we talk about that with our children, they're going to internalize, like, okay, looking out for other people is number one. And then it's innocent. It becomes innocent, even if you had a good childhood, or, you were brought up well, it can be very innocent, but we still internalize these things and then take it to heart. And that was my experience. Like I had a great childhood, but I internalized a lot of messages that then carried on throughout my adulthood. And it might serve you as a child because you're sharing toys and you're kind to other children. That's great. When you get to adulthood, society is not always that kind and friendly, and it's not those little things that are happening, and it gets out of control very quickly because you may be exposed to people who take advantage of that, can play games with you, can manipulate you. And now when your mindset is saying that, nope, you got to take care of that other person before yourself, and you're saying, yes, that's what I need to do, but then they take advantage of it, it's hard and it's confusing, and you don't know how to kind of navigate that. And you go back to what is comfortable. When you're stressed, you always go back to the familiar. So the familiar is take care of that other person. And that can snowball very quickly. And I've seen in my life, I've seen in people who are the closest to me, and it gets very out of control very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes a way of being if you do it for a really long time, like we said before.
Yes.
So then it's a lot more work to kind of undo.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So powerful. So where can people get in touch with you if you've heard what Kelly said and this is resonating with you? I mean, if you're having any of those kind of physical experiences that she shared just before, where can someone get in touch with you, and what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So you can check me out my website. It's optimalu, YOU, healthandwellness.com. I'm on all social media under Dr. Kelly Kessler, all one word. You can also check out the podcast Rewiring Health on all platforms.
Yeah. Awesome. And what's your preferred on the website?
Oh, Optimal You, YOU, Health and Wellness.
Yeah. Cool. So that's your preferred option?
Yeah. You can go right to it. You can get everything from my website. So it's kind of like a one stop. One shot.
I love that. Well, yeah, I'll put all those links. I'll put all those links in the show notes anyway to make it easy for people. But I always just like to make sure that, you get across like, this is the best place to reach me. And this is probably going to be the most successful. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm everywhere as well. Well, I've had such a I've learned some things talking to you. It's been very enlightening. And I know that for a lot of the people that listen to me regularly, like health is a big thing. And as we get older, we are more set in our ways, and it can be a lot harder to shift these things. So if you've resonated with this, or if you feel like you know somebody that could really benefit from hearing this, I'd love it if you shared with this episode with them. Between now and when we have our next show, as I always say, this isn't a dress rehearsal. This is the final act. It's the act. So it's time to be the real you. It's time to put yourself first. It's time to stop putting everybody else before you and self-abandoning in order to please everybody else. And it's time for you to step into choosing yourself. And I just want to give you permission to do that. And I want to thank you again, Kelly, for being on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to the next time we get to have a conversation about this, because I know we can never talk about this enough. It is definitely one that people struggle with. So enjoy the rest of your day. And for those listening, I will be back very soon with another episode of the Free to Be You podcast.